This is the instruction video for the Tutoring Goals and Plans for Instruction paper on our wiki. If you click on Resources and Materials and scroll down to this section here where it says Tutoring Goals and Plans for Instruction paper, you're going to click on the Tutoring Goals and Plans for Instruction guidelines, download that, and open it up. And this is our paper. We're only going to be looking at part 1 at the moment. Part 2 is a later video which describes the actual implementation of a lesson where you will be observed. But part 1 is the paper that you will be creating that plans for your semester and your tutoring for the semester with your 2T. Part 1 of the paper is described as such. You're going to label each section of the paper with the capital letter that's assigned to it. So for part A, you're going to describe the results of your assessments. This is the narrative portion of your paper. You're going to, in the first couple of paragraphs, introduce your student to me as who you know them to be, just as a person. And then you're going to go into describing the results of the assessments that you conducted. I highly recommend that you work through each of the language arts, starting with reading, moving to writing, and then continuing for listening, speaking, viewing, visually representing, and then your effective goal. When you're talking about each of the language arts, explain the assessment that you implemented, what happened during the assessment, the information that you learned from, for example, the MISCU, or from assessing using the 6 traits rubric. Talk in detail using percentages, using data from your assessments, and describe what you learned from that information, what decisions you made about the child's strengths and needs. Do the same thing for the listening, speaking, viewing, and visually representing. Where did you gather that information? Was it from creating the All About Me book? Was it from when perhaps you read a story to the student and you assessed their listening comprehension using your kid watching skills? Describe each language art and the assessment that you used to gather information about the child's needs. This would be a narrative portion of your paper. It should be at least 4 to 5, if not 6 pages long. This is the section of the paper where you will be using academic resources, and the requirement for this paper is 5 academic resources. You can use an academic resource if you quote it twice. That's still considered one academic resource. What is an academic resource? An academic resource is any reading that we have on the wiki for this course. In addition to that, you can cite Assessing Readers, which is the text that we read prior to going out and to tutor. You can also use Improving Reading and craft lessons, but only if you are citing something that the authors stated, not if you've just used the text for finding strategies. If you have an amazing source from another class, something you've read, you are certainly welcome to use that as an academic resource. But I will call into question if you have no academic resources from the readings from this class. So 5 academic resources that you will put in a works cited page. Parts B and C of the paper, I would like for you to combine, labeling it parts B and C. The reason I'd like for you to combine them is because you are stating the goals that you have set for the student, along with the strategies you plan to use to help you meet the goal with the student. And it makes sense to combine these 2 sections. You will create sections B and C for this paper in outline form. I'll state that again. It needs to be in outline form. So, for example, for your 2 reading goals and your 2 writing goals, your 1 goal for each of the other language arts, and your 1 goal for your effective need, you will state the goal. For example, the student will improve their fluency skills by utilizing decoding strategies. That would be an example of a reading goal. Then, under the reading goal, you will list 1, 2, 3, your 3 strategies that you plan to use to help you meet that goal. For each of those strategies, you'll give the name of the strategy, 1 to 2 sentences describing what that strategy is, and then in parentheses, where you got that strategy. You need to go nowhere else other than improving reading or craft lessons for your strategies, as these are approved strategies for this class. Obviously, you can go to other resources. For example, on the web, you can go to Read, Write, Think is a really good source. If your mom or dad is a teacher, by all means, you can get strategy ideas from them. But I want you in parentheses after you've described the strategy in 1 to 2 sentences for you to state where you got your strategy. It does not need to be in APA style. Then moving on to section D, this is where you are going to create a word table where you are listing 10 texts that you plan to use with the above strategies during this semester. Now, where is this word table? If you move out of this assignment back to the wiki page, you can see where this says text log right above it. If you click on that, this is the word table that you will use for part D of your paper. You can see here you're going to fill in all of these columns with the author, with their name last, comma first, the title of the book that you plan to use, the year it was published, and then the genre and style or text mode, so if it's fiction and if it's a novel or a picture book, instructional purposes or the goal that you are addressing with that particular book, and it can be a couple of goals, and then the compatible instructional strategy. So the strategies that you researched, what books do you plan to use those strategies with? You can certainly be multimodal in this text log. You can have YouTube videos, you can have websites, but websites that are for the student, not for your resources. I want this list to be mostly picture books, as you will teach strategies that perhaps they would then implement with a novel. I don't want any of the books on this list to be anything you use for the purpose of assessment, unless you used a novel for your MISCU or running record. If you then read maybe the first chapter for your assessment and the student wants to continue reading it, you then can certainly put it on this list. But I'd like for you to have 10 items. This is part D of the paper.